Wait, so is Pentecost a fulfillment or representation of what happened on Mount Sinai back in Exodus? Let's take a look. So back in Exodus 19, you got this mountain, Mount Sinai, that's completely enveloped in smoke because the Lord came down in fire. People were afraid right here, you know. They were scared of the Lord at this point. So Moses goes up onto the mountain, and that's where he meets with God. And there's smoke, there's fire, there's lightning, and God actually writes with his finger the commandments of the Lord, the 10 Commandments. And so he writes them on stone. And then he basically talks with Moses for a long period of time, and everyone else is waiting for him to come back, and says that he's delayed. And then he shows up later on, and they have basically created this calf out of a fire with gold. And Moses is not happy. The Lord is not happy. He ends up breaking the stones, and because of their sin, 3,000 of them died. Okay, so that's 1,800 years before Christ. All right, so go over to Acts 2, and we're going to read about Pentecost. 2:1 says, "When the day of Pentecost had arrived, they were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound like that of a violent rushing wind came from heaven, and it filled the whole house where they were staying." Filled the whole house. Sounds kind of like the Shekinah glory. What was seen on the Mount of Transfiguration, or maybe in the temple when it was dedicated. So very, very cool there, right? And then it says that and tongues like flames of fire that were divided appeared to them and rested on each one of them. Okay, so we have the fire, we have the violent rushing wind. Kind of sounds like Mount Sinai, right? So fire on both places and some violent wind. They were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in different languages as the Spirit gave them the ability for speech. Okay, so you have God speaking on the mountain, speaking to Moses, and you have God, the Spirit, speaking through these people, through these men, which is really, really incredible. And what's very, very interesting is if you go over to the end of the chapter, it's 242 or 241, and that those that accepted his message were baptized, and that day about 3,000 people were added to them, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and to prayers. Okay, so 3,000 people died because of their sin after God had spoken, and they disobeyed. And now here, the Shekinah glory, tongues of fire, and then you got 3,000 added. Now, one thing that's really, really interesting about all this is back there with Mount Sinai, they got all the laws to figure out, the temple, how to handle themselves. And there they built a place for the presence of God. Okay, so that's there. And for 1,800 years, they had the temple and the sacraments and all the stuff that was going on there, the Holy of Holies. And then now, coming to here, it's not written on tablets of stone, as in Jeremiah. It says, Jeremiah 31:33, that I will write the laws on their heart. So not on the stone anymore, on their heart. Joel say, I will pour out my Spirit to all flesh. The Spirit of God, the one that raised Christ from the dead, actually lives in us. So it's different. There's not a physical place to house the presence of God. We house the presence of God. We are the temple of God. Together, we are the temple of God, and individually, we're the temple of God, where we house the Spirit of God and can have the presence of God, which is absolutely incredible and amazing. And we can worship God anywhere, not on a specific place or mountain. We can worship God anywhere, which is just absolutely incredible. So was this a fulfillment of what was happening back in Mount Sinai and the giving of the Torah? and now he gave his Spirit. You know, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, was in the Old Testament. Many times the Spirit came upon somebody and they prophesied, right? And so what's the difference here? Well, it seems like the Spirit of God came to live inside them, right? We didn't have to go into the Holy of Holies. The curtain was torn in two. We have access to the throne of God, and the Spirit lives inside of us, right? So this is so cool. And you know, we have the ability to love. We have the fuel inside of us to do what we're called to do. We have the source now living inside of us. The very Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives inside of us. So I feel like this is just an amazing truth, an amazing something that we should really focus on. So instead of the attack being where God's people were in Israel and the temple, the attack now is on the church. The attack now is on us, our thoughts. We got to take them captive. So it's really important how we live, how we carry ourselves. We want to carry ourselves in a way worthy of housing the Holy Spirit. Now, you might say, I can't wait to get up to heaven and meet Moses. And you know, one of the questions I would be like, what was it like to experience that on the mountain? And you know what? Moses might go, what was it like to experience the Holy Spirit coming and living inside of you? You know, he didn't get to experience that. So we get to experience that where it's not on stones, it's written on our heart. We have the Holy Spirit living in us. So thought I'd share that with you. I hope that gives you comfort, and I hope that you understand that the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed, and the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. All of this stuff, all the authors, all the chapters, all the writers of these books, all throughout many years, same thing, pointing to Jesus. I hope you have a great day.